Am I audible? If I'm audible, you can send the messages. Fine, I hope I'm audible. And yeah, we are 2-3 minutes delayed. Right. So I think yesterday was a brief introduction into the scope of public administration, the examination in general, and the role of PubAd in UPSC. Fine. So today I think you might be little more enlightened than what you were yesterday. Right. It is a continuous process that you know, and it keeps evolving over the time. Every day we are going to add something to it. Right. So let us review what we did yesterday once, and like we talked about the trend, okay, and certain myths around PubAd, and why PubAd is a very unique option in that regard, and the contribution it has to the overall examination. Fine, and also the various facets of public administration or the study of public administration. Fine, whether as a discipline or as an organization, as an activity, and as part of your social system, right? Socio-cultural milieu. Right. So the PubAd has diverse dimensions. I hope you might have gone through the lecture or whatever notes you had taken. I would recommend you to take notes over the time when we'll get into the entire nitty-gritty of the subject. So you have to make your own notes, and those notes would suffice. Fine. You don't need anything else beyond that. Okay. So you can say that the idea of the scope of public administration starts from the emergence of the state, right? And we talked about the nature of the state can be democratic, autocratic, communist, fine, totalitarian, monarchical, and likewise. So there can be various types of state, political systems with different value systems, and based on that, the nature of relationship between the people and the state changes, right? If you remember the transition from the subject to the citizen, right? That is a very big transformation. Okay, so we'll start the idea from there. Okay, we'll still are into the paper one, into the intro aspects of paper one. Okay, let us see. So we have this as the lecture 2, right? Introduction, and we talked about the lex to lex rex, the transformation, and that is a very big transformation. Fine. So let us continue the idea, keep continuing the same logic. So let us say that the transformation from the subject to the citizen comes with a lot of moral inputs, lot of moral baggage, lot of moral you can say framework. Okay, there is a legal obligation that the state will have for the citizens. Even the citizens may have for the state, but subjects more or less are the people who are dependent, right? I would like to give you one statement given by Kautilya in his book Arthashastra. Kautilya cites this particular statement, and we also use it just to support the moral nature of the monarchy, the king, and how the king should be wise and humble and moral enough to think in terms of the public interest, right? But that cannot be interpreted solely in single dimension. Like we cannot just do it based on one particular perception, right? Let us say, so Kautilya says, we give a very important understanding. Kautilya says, in the happiness of his subjects, in the happiness of his subjects lies the happiness of the king. So in the happiness of his subject lies the happiness of the king. Fine. Now when you see this statement per se, the first hand meaning of the statement seems that king is so moral, king is so morally obliged, right? He is a virtuous man, he is an ideal man who thinks of his subject or the happiness of the subjects a priori before anything else, right? So entire existence of the king depends upon the happiness of the subjects, right? That is the sine qua non, that is the inevitable aspect of being the king. But if you interpret it in another way, right? Now, who decides what is the happiness of the subject in a monarchy? So who decides what is the happiness of the subject? The happiness of the subject is basically decided by the king. So I might be compelled to interpret it in a different manner also, not just in one single dimension, that the subjects are because they are subject to certain things, they are dependent already. So who will decide what is the happiness? And based on the definition of the happiness decided by the king, fine, the citizens, or don't say citizens but subjects, would be served the happiness. So it is the king's benchmark what happiness is, and not the subject's benchmark what happiness is. Now this is another way of viewing it. So monarchical systems, so this transformation from subject to citizen, point, this gives a very important boost. This gives a very important, you can say, platform, creates a fertile ground for the emergence of public administration, or you can say the evolved legal, pro people, pro citizen administrative systems, and thereby a concern for the study of administration. So whatever various four doors we talked about, the four dimensions that we talked about, the four windows to the understanding of public administration, they all derive from the logic that the citizens are first, the citizens are the center of the study of this entire discipline. Fine. Without the study of the citizen or the benefit of the citizen, the entire basis, the entire content of public administration becomes meaningless. Fine. So the logic is that the idea or this transformation is a very unique transition. Fine. So if I say, and if we take like European philosophers, Western thinkers also, so their idea also of a political system or polity, fine, is not was not very evolved in terms of defining public administration or the study of administration separately. For example, when we say Kautilya, so Kautilya was the supporter of monarchy, a monarchical system, a monarchical domination, centralization of power and authority, and thereby definitely diluting certain rights of the people and undermining the rights of the people for the benefit of the state or the monarch. Right? So you cannot out and out accept them as being the contributors to the modern idea of public administration. Right? But this creates a lot of scope for the study, right? But when you see the Western thinkers, like I was talking about, so Western thinkers also like Machiavelli, though separated by huge space and time, Kautilya and Machiavelli, okay, they are supposed or considered to be similar in nature, right? Now Machiavelli's book, The Prince, now obviously the prince here refers to the king in the making. The prince here refers to the one who is going to exercise power, is going to acquire authority and exercise it. He's not talking about an exploitative king or a prince or a political system, but yes, his idea is that the entire state, the entire political system revolves around him. And it would not be an exaggeration if I say that the prince, according to Machiavelli, is equivalent to the state. Hmm? The Rajan, the king, like the Kautilya, the center of the entire administration. So same way, the prince or Machiavelli's book, The Prince, talks about the state as being the prince or the prince being the state. So he has given a very famous statement that the ends justifies the means. Goal is very important. It doesn't matter what the means are. The means or the morality of the means depends upon the morality of the end. So if the end is good, the means can be bad, it doesn't matter. So a bad means can be justified for good end. And what is good here? Again, the prince, the center. He will define what is moral, what is immoral. Fine. In fact, Machiavelli says that the state is neither moral or amoral. Right? State is neither moral or amoral. It is neither moral or immoral. It is amoral. Okay, this means what? That the state is above the questions of morality. Might is right. Always, that is correct. Okay. So Hobbes, Locke, and a lot of people, contractists also somewhere they did not obviously support exactly this idea, but the logic is that the state, whatever the government does, whatever the system does, whatever the power does, is for the benefit of the state, and whatever it does, presuming that it is for the benefit of the state, it is not or it cannot be put to the questions or the test of morality. Right? But in today's scenario, when you talk about democracies, right, you cannot think that way. Okay. When the government makes a decision towards Pakistan, maybe towards Bangladesh, towards China, okay, or its standoff with Iran or USA, whatever we are doing today, or its internal affairs, CA, NRC, whatever it is doing today, okay, the government is subject to question. The government is subject to logic and reasoning. The government is subject to the critical scrutiny of the people. The government cannot run unless the public perception is built positively around the government. Right? So try to understand these two words, subject to citizen, is a very big transformation. So state is essential, integrity of the state is essential, the government is important, but no. The government is not the center of administration, of governing, it is the people. Right? And this is the very important perspective, right, which opens the door for a new dimension of the scope of public administration. Fine, we'll come to that. So we had, let us come back and I will categorize it again. So we were talking about, I think you have written it. Fine. So obviously you can rewind and write it. Right. So the government, let us come. So we were talking about simply the scope of the study. This is not the scope given in your syllabus, the word scope. Here the scope is about how we are going to, approach the subject public administration itself. Fine. So let us say the scope. And so one, I'm just putting it this way. So the first was public administration as, or let me write in the crisp manner, much better. Fine. So we can write in a crisp manner that there was an academic view. Right. So there was an academic view of PUBAC. Then there was the organizational view. PUBAC is organization as a system that is going to work, okay, which you generally refer to your bureaucracy, right? And then there is the third view, the functional view of public administration. What activity it performs, what are the goals, fine, what set of procedures, functions it does to achieve certain goals which have been decided. Right. Fourth was its socio-cultural view or the ecological perspective. Right? Now, whatever discussion we have done just now when we started the class, so whatever discussion we have done, right, that discussion yields another perspective of public administration which is much more contemporary in nature. Fine? Influenced by certain factors that we just talked about. Okay, citizenship, the concern for citizens being the center of entire framework. Okay, this is known as the governance view or the governance perspective. So see, now when you say, okay, what is PubAd? It has this meaning, it has this meaning, it has this meaning, or this opens one scope, another scope, another scope, another scope, another scope. Fine. So if we have to categorize it, let us say, right? Just write it. So let us say, if we have to now categorize it into a simple logic, then okay, there are technically 5 windows now, not 4. So there are 5 doors or 5 windows, 5 perspectives through which we can view public administration, and every perspective would give you some conclusion. Right? And that conclusion will never be absolute. So one perspective, and we can just make the simple diagram now. So you have, fine. Don't expect a very neat diagram from me. That is why I never took geography as a subject. Right. So one perspective can be this, or something like this. So you have, and let's say for example the question comes in 10 marks, part A, paper 1. Okay, what are the academic perspectives, or what are the different perspectives in which the public administration can be understood? Right? One is academic, other is organizational. So you get one question also here. Right? One is functional. So academic, organizational, functional, ecological, and the governance. Now these are the major perspectives. Right? So you can simplify it and probably use it in your answer. Perspectives of, or perspectives on, the term public administration. So the word public administration, the moment that you hear it, the moment that you want to define it, you understand it, now you can write this definition, you can use this in a definition, you can write a paragraph using this. Now these are the different perspectives on the term public administration. So the moment somebody says I am studying PubAd, the moment somebody says okay, what is PubAd, right, you can define it. This is what is the scope of study of public administration. This is what the domain of PubAd will imbibe, or it will include all these variety of factors, all these variety of windows to the understanding of PubAd. So this will have one conclusion, one aspect, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fine. So can you call it as an absolute area of study? No. Because there are conclusions, but there are multiple conclusions. Right? So we'll deal with that aspect again later over the time. Fine. I don't want to tax you in the beginning itself. I know. Okay, PubAd is a very simple subject. The only thing is that if you change the lens through which you are viewing it, fine, the clarity will increase. Right. So let us say the governance perspective now. So very briefly, I'll discuss about that also. That why this agenda, why this idea of governance view emerges, and why it is becoming so popular today. Right. So This is our fifth view, the governance view or perspective. Right. So governance perspective or governance view. Now we were talking about the government yesterday, right? So I told you that this is a state and there are technically legislature, executive, judiciary. They have different functions. Why they have different functions, why the authority is divided, all this we talked about briefly, right? We'll again take up all these things obviously when we enter into the entire text of the syllabus. So this is the government. It has administration. Now see, let us amplify this part now. Right? This is for your understanding. This you have already talked about briefly yesterday. So let us now amplify this part. Right? So there is a government, right, which includes the administration. Now try to understand certain things. When we say we are mostly concerned with the democracy and the relationship of the people and the government in a democratic context, right? And you can say that way that we are mostly concerned with the study of administration in a democratic setup. Though other systems will also be used for comparison, but it will not be dealt in detail. Right? So China follows communism. Mostly many Eastern European countries were following, they were socialist enclaves. USSR got disintegrated into CIS countries and likewise, and many other countries still, a lot of countries in the world follow communism or socialism in different forms. Okay, India also is supposed to be a democratic socialist system, right? So we will obviously deal with that aspect, but mostly we are more concerned with democracy. The reason being that the American or the formation of the American political system, the enactment of the American Constitution, it laid the foundation of a very vibrant democracy, and that became probably the benchmark of an established, of an acceptable, of a desirable political system. Fine. So take it that way now. So let us say we have a government and administration, and this is the context of democracy, right? And for whom are they working? Right? Who has established them? Society. Yesterday we talked about political contract and social contract theory, right? So now see, if we have created them, okay, then they have to work for what? For our benefits. Now society controls them and society gets benefit from them, right? But society has bestowed the power in the form of making a constitution or giving the power of making laws to them, right? Or implementing laws to them. So they are actually exercising a part of authority of the state. Okay, we talked about separation of power, Montesquieu, fine. So a part of the authority of the state is to be exercised by them. Obviously, where will they exercise? They will exercise authority on them. And finally, they will be the one who will be implementing things on the ground because they are more related to the grassroots level, right? And now this authority would be obviously exercised in the society, not necessarily on the people, but in the society to achieve certain things for the collective benefit of the people, right? Now this is a simple process. We give the authority and then the authority is being exercised upon us for the greater benefit of society. Okay, this is a very simple process to understand. So what is the nature of relationship here? If we are citizens, I'm simplifying it, society, citizens, right? So citizens are basically political beings. Okay, a brief discussion is required here also. You can always make a column in your notebook where we'll keep writing Okay, a lot of such discussions. Okay, so this will help you in understanding the process of the classroom, because you just cannot mug it up. There's nothing like mugging it. You don't need to mug it, right? So we are political beings as citizens. Now let us say, if I say I simply write a political system, we'll talk about what system is, everything we'll talk about. There will be nothing which will be left to divine intervention. Fine, we cannot take chances. The God is not kind towards us. That is very true. है ना, कोरोना वरना क्यों होता है ना, तो हम ये अज्यूम करते हैं कि गॉड हमारे लिए काइंड नहीं है, बट गॉड हमारे लिए ऑब्स्ट्रक्टिव नहीं है. So we'll not leave anything to the divine intervention. We'll talk about everything. We'll know everything that is needed. Right? Political system है. This is a social system. Fine. Let us say there is an economic system, and somewhere there is a family. Now all of them will comprise together, right? Where we will exist. Okay. You just see, check. So we have 4 systems. All of them together is what we are. Now let us say we are some C, or you can say A. Right? We are citizens. I am part of this also. 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 When I go to a wedding and I am not part of that wedding, of any of the families who are involved in the wedding, who I am? I am a guest. Right? Let's say I am part of the wedding, but I am in the wedding, but I am part of the groom's family. Right? I will be a VIP guest. Fine, treated VIP. I am part of the bride's family. Fine. I will be a nervous, dependent person, a subservient person. That is what the culture is. Fine. So let us understand this way: the same person, when he is in different systems, right? His values, his behavior, his actions, his evaluation changes. So Mr. A is a citizen here, political system. Mr. A is a member of society here, cultural, religious being, entity. Mr. A is a customer, consumer here, and Mr. A is part of family. All Mr. A, but with different roles that he plays. Is it clear to you? So let us say we are citizens. We are part of the society, but when we are saying citizens, we are trying to evaluate us, we are trying to identify ourselves with the political system rather than the society. Though we are part of the society itself, right? But our political aspect is more visible here. It's more prominent here. So we are citizens. Now see the nature of relationship, what happens here. So do you think that the government will act for our benefit? Yes, it should. That is how theoretically we have created the system. That is what the perception has been. Fine, and that is what probably the reason for the existence of the government and the administration is. But will they do so? That is the biggest question. How will we know whether they will do it or not? Or how will we find out whether they are doing it or not? Now that is also a big question. So who is doing it? What they are doing? Okay, why they are doing it? Why they are not doing it? Fine, how to know all these things? These are very important, pertinent questions. Right? So a window clerk sitting in the RTO office, the RTO will never be able to find out what that window clerk is doing. Fine. You see the Kanpur recent tragedy, right, of killing of the vigilant police officers, or so-called, you can say, the team which went to do certain control the crime, okay, or kill a mafia, or at least arrest a mafia. Fine. So they were killed. Okay. They were not aware of what is going to happen. But somebody from them only itself informed or tipped the mafia or the don. Right. Now it is obvious that we do not know that in such a big system, in such an entire complicated system, who is actually behaving okay, in an errant or deviant manner. So you can imagine that when it comes at the level of the society, at a big political and territorial entity, let's say something like India, or let's say any country, a large administrative complex system, right? How will you ever know that the system has crevices, the system has cracks, the system has black sheep, a lot of people in the system itself who are trying to, eat up the system itself, right? So it becomes very difficult for people to actually find out whether these people will work for us or not. And if they don't work, what will we do? How can we control them? Fine, that is the most pertinent, that is the most important question. Fine. So let us say the government must work for the citizens, but will the government work for the citizen? That is the question. Okay, government will work for the citizen, let us say, assume that also, but will they work in the manner in which the citizen wants it? Right? Are you understanding this logic? Okay. So now let us understand one more thing. Right? When we assume, it is little out of our frame, right? So let us say when we think in this manner, that let us believe that citizens government and administration functioning is like this, but theoretically the idea of the authority, the power, the control may remain this way. So what we said, the society creates the administrative system, or the state creates or branches out into an executive, the government creates or creates an administrative system to serve the society. So ultimately the power resides amongst. So if we assume this as the relationship, okay, so we can say that they are actually the owners. They are actually the owners of the authority, of the power. They are the ones to whom the power has been given. And further, they have given the power to them to do certain things. Now, let us assume this. Because this is what is actually the idea of creating the government and the administration. Right. So, they are the owners. Who are these people? They are the people whom we have hired, fine, or whom we have created. So, we can say that we are the owners, fine, and they are our means, or they are our instruments. Pen एक instrument, pen doesn't own me, I own the pen. Right. So let us understand this way in simple way. So we are the owners, they are the instrument, they are the means by which we try to achieve certain ends that we want. Right? Discipline, control, development, growth, transportation, agriculture, whatever we talk about. Right? We use them to achieve these goals. Right? Now this idea itself is known as that we are the owners, right? And they are our means, they are the instruments. This idea itself is known as the right? Let us say this idea itself is known as the principal agent model, or principal, let me simplify it, principal agent relationship. Who are the principals? The principal is the owner. Who are the agent? The agent who are working on behalf of the principal. Now understand a simple logic that we have hired them, we have elected them, they have hired the administration, and now they are working for us. Are you understanding this? The principal agent relationship. Right. So principal agent relationship says we are the owners and they are the ones who are our instruments, our means to achieve this. So technically आप उसको simplify कर सकते हैं, हम owner हैं, वो employee हैं. Right? So the government and the administration, by this logic, they are just the agents who are working on behalf of us. But now let me give you a simple example, a simple story, that you have a gardener, fine, you have hired a gardener and you have a huge lawn, right, and a lot of plants are there, and you want this gardener to keep your garden prim and proper, okay, clean, neat, clean, fine, and probably you can say well organized. But you have to go on vacation, or you get stuck somewhere in Corona, right? And then you let us say call him and tell him that okay, fine, if the situation becomes little better, what you do, you go to the house, right, clean the garden every day, and per day we'll give you additional 100 rupees per day for keeping the garden, cleaning the garden every day, okay, removing the dead leaves or whatever, the biomass or whatever. So remove it every day and clean it. We'll give you 100 rupees additional every day. Now you come after a month, right, and you come and see that your garden is neat, clean, prim and proper, right, the way you wanted it. You'll be very happy that the agent, the person that whom we hired, has worked very well, right, has performed his duties. So when we have come together, we told him this 30 days back, so now this person is entitled to 30 into 100, 3,000 rupees, the additional money that we talked about. Fine, they pay him and they ask him to go. Sir, okay, fine, you take a holiday and come after 2 days. Your neighbor was seeing this and neighbor says that why are you paying this man so much of money? He said, see, we had a pact with him, right, and we told him to do this task, and ultimately he did it. When we came here, everything was neat and clean. Now the neighbor tells you that okay, no, it is not true. This person did not come for 29 days. He came today morning at 5 o'clock and he started cleaning everything. So effectively he has just performed 1 day's task and not the 30 days task. So he should have been paid only 100 rupees and not 3,000 rupees. Now see why this problem. You have hired the agent, fine, but you are not able to control it always, because the agent is the one which is doing things. You are the one who is just assuming that the agent is telling you what is correct. So the agent, that is the government, that is the administration, you believe as the owner, as the principal, that they are informing you everything which is right. They are telling you the current situation of COVID, fine. They are telling you that whatever the health value addition to the health administration, to the health infrastructure they have done is correct, fine. They are telling you the correct number of deaths. They are telling you whatever you can imagine. Fine. The defense expenditure is correct. Fine. The conflicts are real. Right? Or for that matter, most of these scams, okay, that happened in Congress regime are right. Or whatever Congress said to you, you accepted that also. So the logic is that are we informed enough? Are we in a position? Are we in a situation to control these people? We are not. Because we are not part of the system. We own the system, but we are not part of it. Simply like the way your driver takes your car to the garage, and the mechanic and the driver has a pact between them. You will never come to know. You are technically not that competent enough to know everything. So same way, laws, rules, regulations, procedures, fine, techniques, tools, internal arrangement, internal system of the organization, government, everything is known by them. Fine. Is this aspect clear? Because it requires a lot of understanding to understand this idea. And this is probably a very most used term today in the media, in the newspaper, in your GS paper 2, wherever, in your essays, and likewise in PubAd to high, fine, but it is most misunderstood. People don't understand it. People probably will never understand it if they don't put their logic behind it. Government hai to governance hai. You don't understand this idea. So let us say now, where is the problem? Right? Where is the problem? The problem is the inability of the principal to control the agent. Right? The problem is that the agent is much more clever, much more sharper, much more shara than the principal. Because the principal is not informed properly. The principal does not have the means to control the agent. The principal cannot make the agent accountable. Finally, remember these three important terms. One, the principal is not competent. Fine. The principal is not informed properly. Fine. And the principal does not have the means, does not have the tools to control or make the agent accountable. All these three are missing. This is not there, this is not there, this is not there. क्यों? आप उनको आपने elect किया, बिठा दिया, they'll meet you after 5 years. You are not bothered. You are such a passive citizen. We are passive democracies, most of us. Okay, our passive democracies, we don't bother what is happening once we elect people. Right. So, the logic here is that once you put them there, you don't know what is happening. They know. Once they keep doing it, they become so smart, so competent. That Lalu Prasad ji, I am using, obviously, because they have been chief ministers and ministers, honorary constitutional, part of constitutional bodies. So, he can, okay, very competently manipulate the truck as a scooter. Right? The CBI inquiry and the court's judgment subsequently you will see. So most of the numbers on which the 20 quintals or 100 kgs of the fodder which was transported, fine, that was mostly the scooters. So the scooters are carrying quintals of fodder. Okay, there is something magician can only do and nobody else. So politicians, most of the politicians in India are the snake charmers. They are the magicians, right? And we keep criticizing all those religious people. Okay, they are not at all magicians. Politicians are magicians. So you can see they can very ably misguide you. Right? This is known as this entire idea that the government system or the people in the government, they are at such a position, they are so smart, they have access to certain things that they can easily misguide you, manipulate you. Okay, this is referred to as information asymmetry. So there is information asymmetry. There is manipulation of information. There is hiding of information. And you only come to know what the agent tells you. Surgical strike हो गया मानना पड़ेगा. So Rahul Baba will say कि मनमोहन जी ने भी सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक किया था, आपको पता ही नहीं चला. क्यों? क्योंकि वो सर्जिकल था. So the logic is you will never come to know. What happened in Augusta Westland, you don't know. What happened in Bofors, you don't know. Right? So the logic is, okay, you don't know, and probably now because of social media you over know. Right? So you don't have time to interpret or analyze because you have so much of information to acquire. Right? Either ways, you are the sufferer. Right? This is known as information asymmetry. One of the biggest reasons that the governments, whether in democracy or elsewhere, mostly when we talk about democracy, they have been working, they are being elected by the people, they create the entire facade of working for the people, fine. They develop an entire system which seems to be working for the people, and people seem to be very closer and being able to see whatever is happening in the system, but in reality that is not happening. But people are incompetent enough to know, okay, that what they can do about it. Are you getting the point? So see, the logic here is that when there is an information asymmetry, it is very difficult for the people to control the governments and very easy for the governments to manipulate the people and the entire system which they are working for. So they misuse the authority, they get into corruption, they hide information, they hide facts, they politicize administration, they form links with the media, they develop a nexus, fine, a kind of cartel is formed, and this cartel works to just centralize the power and authority and keep people outside. So to understand the real nature of the power, exercise of power, the real nature of the decision making in the government, to understand the behavior of all those people who are working within the government, be it politicians, bureaucrats, administrators, okay, part-time workers, okay, lower level officials, technocrats, whosoever are part of the system, to understand that why they are behaving, how they are behaving, and how this behavior can be rectified, how they make decisions, why they make such decisions, why there is corruption, why there is lobbying, why there is this, just to understand all this so that we can improve, right, the functioning of the government, and at the same time make people control their governments in an effective manner. People are aware and educated. Okay, this entire perspective where the idea was to improve the process of governing. So how to improve the process of governing? Fine. How to make this process of governing more transparent, more citizen friendly, more accountable to people, more inclusive of people in the system, okay, and not keeping the system, the government system, the authority system opaque from outside, right? Inaccessible to the people. So the entire study, the entire perspective that emerged, right, with this idea, with this conception, that is known as governance. So governance is not government, but yes, it is the study of government. Okay. Governance does not just focus upon, understanding the government itself, but it focuses on understanding why government does something that it does, and can it be improved, and why government did something that it did. Right? This is a very broad perspective. It is much bigger than government system itself. It is much bigger than the simple study of administrative organization and political system. It is much bigger than. Right? It is more of a multidisciplinary approach to the study of public administration. So let us just, I'll give you brief things because we have to study this in detail also. But this is a very modern perspective today. This is a new perspective today. Right? No worries. Right? So it is multidisciplinary. It is a multidisciplinary perspective, right? Which focuses on, with focus on what? Focus on improving, understanding, and scrutinizing the process of governing, that is the exercise of authority, that is the exercise of authority by the government plus the administration. And thereby, what will be the consequence? Obviously, the focus would be to more empowerment of citizens. Okay, the focus would be to improve the accountability. We'll talk about everything. What is accountability over the time? You'll know everything. Don't worry. You don't need a dictionary, you don't need a book, you just need me. Fine? The only thing is that you must be able to use me. Right? So, empowerment of citizens, accountability, right? And improving the overall participation of people. So see, governance is all about a critical perspective to government. The governance is all about the assumption that the people in power may not behave in a moral manner. People in power may not behave in the corrective manner. People in power will have the tendency to misuse the power, and it is our duty, okay, or it is our inevitable responsibility to develop a framework to understand how the power is visible in action. Fine. So you make an RTI and people misuse RTI. Fine. You make IPC. You make the what is that? The preventive detention laws. Okay. Yeah. TADA, POTA, AFSPA, whatever, National Security Act, whatever you talk about. So you make AFSPA, people misuse it. So just by having AFSPA, if you believe that okay, we have such a good law and we have such good bureaucrats, we have good such military officers, and they are going to do as per the law. So this is a very naive, this is a very immature assumption that what we have decided will be done exactly the way we have decided. No, it is not going to happen. So the governance perspective comes, right? And obviously this term was used, is supposed to be for the first time used by Aristotle, which he uses as governance, which is not exactly what we mean today, but it is just a historical reference. Fine. Kautilya is also credited with using something like the term governance. Fine. His Niti and Nyay, the concept of Niti and Nyay, fine, though that is akin to or synonymous to the governance perspective, is considered to be fine. The moral and penal reinforcements that he talks about, right? So even Kautilya to an extent, and likewise, but we cannot totally credit them. The modern conception of the word governance is mostly attributed to World Bank and IMF, like any other thing that exists today. Fine. Mostly attributed to the World Bank and the IMF. 1987. So the agenda of good governance comes and likewise. But right now, your purpose is just to understand the perspective of governance. Right? Now, this is also one scope or another window added to the scope of power. That we also have to not only understand the government system, the procedure, the rule, the regulation, but also we have to understand the process. Also, we need to know the internal aspects. Also, we need to know how actually it happens and how different it is from what is written in the book, in the rule book, in the statute. Right? Are you getting this one? So, the governance perspective or governance view comes, and this again overhauls the entire periphery of public administration, the entire perspective of public administration, and likewise. So your unit 1 will mostly comprise of these themes that we have talked about. And in fact, your paper 1, most of the themes will revolve around these. Okay. And one more that I'm going to add is now the most dominant, most contemporary, but probably not most dominant in public administration. Now, this perspective can be considered to be coming in late 70s, 80s. In fact, late 60s or 50s and 60s, it becomes dominant in many other social sciences, but not in public administration. Around 1980s or post 1980s, it emerges dominantly in public administration. Right? So your paper 1 has elements of this perspective also. And this also somewhere comes into the study, though it is again what we said, it is the latent part, not the manifest part. Yesterday we talked about the trends. So see how trends are emerging, that from 2014 onwards we are now witnessing a lot of questions which people say out of course, out of syllabus, but they are not. They are the latent parts, and that is how we are going to include them into our understanding. Unless we explore, go out of the predefined boundary of the syllabus, fine. And obviously we are not being anarchic. We have a very methodical way of doing that, very methodical way of understanding how it is going to happen. So this is one of the aspects which is more latent than manifest in your paper 1. Right? So this perspective is also emerging today. It is quite dominant today. Fine, whether in theory, whether in practice, fine, whether we talk about many scholars who are now becoming part of the public administration, okay, using this perspective known as the postmodernism. Postmodernism or postmodern perspective. एक सिंपल पर्सपेक्टिव है, okay, don't get threatened by the term itself, right? Now see postmodern perspective, why this perspective comes. Right? So very basic, very simple understanding we'll do. Let us say that the color of the pen that I'm writing is black. Right? And the board on which it is being written is white. Now two dominant categories, right? You understand this one? Let us say. So two dominant categories, black and white. Now I am using, let's say metaphorically we can use it. Metaphorically we can use it like, this may refer to certain things which may not be good. Okay, this may refer to certain things which may be hidden. It can have various interpretations. This is something which is more transparent, more